What is going on, every pony? This is Octavius Lover here, also known as Calvin with Celestius WC, and we are going to be reading Anthropology by Jason the Human, Chapter 1, Music and Magic. You can eat that! Lyra looked expectantly at the cake that was still on Bonbon's plate. Her roommate lifted a hoof to pull the plate a bit closer to her side of the table. Honestly, Lyra, sorry, but it's just been sitting there, and we just got to Sugar Cube Corner 5 minutes ago, Bonbon said, and excuse me if I was a little shocked by how you inhaled yours. Coming here had become a tradition, something the two of them did every weekend. Mr. and Mrs. Cake were some of the best bakers in Ponyville, if not all of Equestria. For ponies who both loved sweets, it was a natural hangout. You think cake and candy are some kind of art form, don't you? It's what I make for a living. Of course there's an art to it. Kinda made Bonbon look a little British there, but I could do that, whatever. And anyway, I finally got a job interview scheduled with the owners, so before we know it, I might even be working here. That's nice. Will I get free cake then? Lyra asked. Bonbon glared at her. Anyway, I heard you were invited to play at the Grand Galloping Gala this year. That's quite an honor, Bonbon said. She took a single bite of her cake, enjoying it, savoring the flavor, unlike a certain unicorn. Lyra nodded vigorously. Wait, what the heck? Hold on. Just lost where I was. No. Alright, there we are. Lyra nodded vigorously. Yeah, can you believe it? I'm not too good with formal events, though. I can't imagine why. Bonbon's attention was fixed on some chocolate frosting still hanging off Lyra's chin. Let's hope it doesn't turn out to be a disaster like it was last year. You heard about that, right? Lyra nodded. I never would have thought Fluttershy had it in her. It's always the quiet ones. It's true, I'm one of the quiet ones. I'm so quiet. Taking another small bite of her cake, Bonbon continued. So, had they told you what pieces you'll be performing? Do you know what you'll be wearing? Bonbon shrugged. I don't know, maybe ready. Incoming! They barely heard the buzz of the scooter approaching before it slammed into the table. Bonbon's cake was propelled directly into her face. Lyra attempted, unsuccessfully, to stifle a laugh. Wait, my Apple Bloom voice may sound a little weird, but just bear with me. Scootaloo, are you sure that's your special talent? Apple Bloom, said, walking toward the overturned table with Sweetie Belle at her side. Bonbon gaped at the three fillies, her face covered in frosting. What can I say? Sometimes it's better to finish quickly, Lyra shrugged. By the way, you've got a little something. She lifted a hoof to her own face, right there. Bonbon had already snatched up a napkin and started wiping herself off. Sorry about that, Scootaloo said, shaking her head. She adjusted her helmet. I was going so fast that time. Now I just need to work on my turns. She gave a weak smile. No problem, Lyra said. Bonbon hesitated and took a deep breath. Yes, no problem at all. Lighten up, they're just kids. Remember what it was like trying to get a cutie mark when you were that age? I don't blame them for trying all this crazy stuff. Sweetie Belle's face brightened up. Hey! We never asked you how you got your cutie mark. Your talent is music, isn't it? She was staring at a golden harp on Lyra's flank. Yeah, actually it took me a long time to get my cutie mark. It was back in Philly school when I lived in Canterlot. I was one of the last in my class to get mine, Isn't it always? Flashback. When Lyra is small. And in school. Lying awake in bed one night, Heartstrings, she'd still been calling herself Heartstrings back then, had heard her parents talking about her. You know that Heartstrings has been struggling in school. That was her mother. Some unicorns just take longer to learn magic, that's all. Things will come to her in time, she heard her father reply. But what if it doesn't? It's been too long now. No magic, no cutie mark. What if it's all because Heartstrings is a unicorn. It's that simple. It'll all come in time. Of course, even though she was a filly, Heartstrings even knew what they had been talking about. Her mother was a Pegasus, and her dad was a unicorn. She had a horn, but she had never been able to use it. The other unicorns in her class had already mastered things like levitation, but she couldn't even lift a feather. She had to agree with her mother. What if she just couldn't learn magic? Her teacher, Indigo Spark, said that it didn't matter. A pony had a horn, they were a unicorn. There wasn't such a thing as a half unicorn. But this wasn't the only time she had overheard her parents having the same conversation, and she still couldn't focus any power through her horn. Cutie marks and magic were still on Heartstring's mind the next day in class. They'd been brought to the music room instead of their usual classroom. Wait. Oh, okay, Indigo Spark's a guy. Today we will be working with musical instruments. I'd like all of you to pick something out. We're just practicing today, so don't worry about sounding good. It's a good voice. I like it. Indigo Spark watched his class as they inspected each instrument. Heartstrings tagged along after the rest of her classmates. Would she be any good at this? It looked like there was a tuba, too big, a xylophone that had a lot of keys. How would she even handle that one? There were some drums. Those would be easy. Yes, Bluebell, that one's called a lyre. Heartstrings turned to see her teacher talking to a navy blue unicorn. It's one of the more difficult instruments. It takes a lot of concentration to focus on moving each string to play even a simple song. How does it work? The filly asked. Focus your magic onto each string and adjust the tension in order to make them vibrate and create sound. Bluebell had already started, and what came out wasn't exactly music in the strictest definition. Heartstrings winced at the noise and turned to look at a cello. Maybe that one would work. No way. It was too big. They're not that big. They really actually aren't that big at all. I think I'll take a different one, Bluebell said, turning away from the lyre. Something easier. Most of the instruments had already been taken. So much for the drums, Heartstrings thought, wandering around the music room between other young unicorns who were already trying out their new instruments. Heartstrings finally took a closer look at the lyre. No way. That one would definitely be too hard. Besides, the explanation had made no sense. They were supposed to create music if you moved each string by itself. If you plucked them in sequence, moving them down the row, it was less a matter of moving each string and more of something moving through them, plucking each one. A few notes played, soft but clear. A few more, it was beginning to sound like a simple melody, nothing too complicated, but musical all the same. Heartstrings closed her eyes and focused on the notes. Yes, this was how a lyre was meant to be played. My, Heartstrings, you sure have a knack for that. Her eyes snapped open. The whole room had gone quiet. She tried to look at her horn on her forehead and saw the edges of a lime green glow. It matched the glow surrounding the lyre. She slowly backed away from the lyre, feeling the eyes of every pony in the room watching her. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. That was truly impressive. I just thought there was probably a different way to play it. Simpler, Heartstrings stammered. There's nothing wrong, Indigo Spark said. Now, does every pony have an instrument chosen? Let's begin. Heartstrings glared at the golden instrument, and with some effort, managed to get to the float next to her. She was so ecstatic, she felt like getting up and running straight home to tell her parents, but the class had already been started. While the other colts and fillies struggled to create anything musical, Heartstrings was already grasping how to play this instrument. It was like she was born to play. When the class was finally over, she noticed something different about herself, namely on her back leg. Oh my god, she's got her cutie mark. Oh. To say the least, her parents were pleased when she returned home that afternoon. Heartstrings thought her mother was going to faint after she saw her daughter's new cutie mark, and she almost did. After hearing a bit of what Heartstrings could do, her father signed her up for music lessons right away. They were saying she was a prodigy. Maybe she was. Heartstrings didn't really care either way. The excitement of being able to do magic was enough for her. It finally looked like Heartstrings was going to grow up into a perfectly normal unicorn. That's not going to happen. Wait, is it true what they say about ponies like that? Sweetie Belle asked. When their parents are two different kinds of ponies? I mean, I know it doesn't happen often, but you're great with magic, Lyra. Who knows? It took some practice, but I'm alright now, Lyra replied. And it just goes to show that everybody gets their cutie mark eventually. I'm sure you'll all find yours soon enough. Bonbon had finished wiping the cake off her face and was in a better mood. You know, when I was about your age, that was the first time I ever learned how to use an oven, and Hey, music might work. Maybe we should try getting our band back together. Come on, Crusaders, Scootaloo said. The three of them disappeared into a yellow, orange, and white blur. What? Bonbon said. I didn't get a chance to tell my Cutie Mark story. Kids and their short attention spans. She turned her head. Lyra? There was a fork hovering in the air in front of Lyra's face, and she was inspecting it with curiosity. She turned at the sound of her name, and the fork dropped to the ground. Huh? Never mind. Let's go home. Music played softly in the distance, a familiar sound in the darkness. Did she know this song? She couldn't name it. Then a figure, but it wasn't a pony. That was much clearer. It was. Yes. Lyra started to move towards it for a better look. The darkness was fading away until she could start to make out the details. She had just a glimpse before she hit the bedroom door with a thud, giving her a rude awakening from the dream. But she had still had the image in her mind. Lyra stared up at the ceiling, her back on the floor, and her legs sticking straight up in the air. The covers from her bed were still partially draped over her. It all makes sense now, she grinned. How did I not see this before? This had to be documented. Picking herself off the floor, Lyra raced down the hall and found her journal in the office. Levitating it from the shelf, she quickly started sketching with the nearest quill she could find. Wait. Yeah. Lyra, I heard a crash. Are you alright? Bonbon wandered into the room, rubbing her eyes. She stared at Lyra, and the glowing quill scratching madly at the page. What are you doing? They designed it. It was meant for them to play, not us, Lyra muttered, not taking her eyes off the journal. It all makes so much sense. Bonbon shook her head and watched over her roommate's shoulder. Some kind of figure was taking shape. It was holding a lyre and what seemed to be arms. The shape of the body wasn't one that Lyra had ever seen before. Maybe it's similar to a baby dragon, like the one that lived with Twilight Sparkle, but the limbs were elongated. The strings are much easier to pluck if you have fingers. I think it's simple. I think it's similar I think it's similar to how I play it, actually. What I imagine while I'm doing it, at least. Lyra continued, sketching. Bonbon could tell if Lyra was explaining to her, or if she was talking to herself. They're too close together to play very well with hooves, and it wouldn't make sense for ponies to design an instrument that could only be played with magic. Lyra, is this another one of those theories about those? Bonbon's voice trailed off into a yawn. Humans, of course, Lyra nodded. She dropped the quill and looked up. Humans invented lyres. Can you believe it? I've had their work on my flank for years, and I've never even realized it. She grinned widely, looking at the image of the harp on her back leg. You're sure? Bonbon let out another yawn. You actually think that this was invented by some kind of, what was it again? If you knew where to look, you'd realize that humans have to work all over equestrian civilization. Ponies weren't the first to establish a society. It was all because of humans, and we're just borrowing it. Bonbon stared at Lyra, not understanding how any pony could be awake and so energetic at 3 in the morning. And she was on one of her human rants again. Not that Bonbon had any idea what a human was, but apparently Lyra had a strange obsession with them. Some kind of obscure mythical being that was referenced in some old books. And that was all they were, a myth. No pony had ever seen a real human before. Just go to bed, Bonbon said. She turned around and headed back to her room. Lyra's grin vanished, and she looked back at her drawing. She had put much detail as she could into the way the hands held the instrument and the way the fingers moved along each individual string. It all seemed to work so well. There was even less attention to face and the rest of the I don't know what's my problem here. And the rest of the body, just a rudimentary torso and legs. Already the details of the dream were fading from her mind. It wasn't the first dream Lyra had about humans. They happened sporadically, usually in groups. She could expect several more hazy, indistinct dreams over the next few nights. Her journal was filled with as much as she could remember from them. I know humans used to exist, Lyra muttered. Maybe not anymore, but they were real. She took one last glance at the figure she had drawn, playing a lyre, as she herself often did. But this was the right way to play one, the way it had been intended. Then she closed the cover and lifted the book back onto the shelf. For the rest of the night, Lyra couldn't remember if she had any more dreams. Okay, chapter 1. This has been Octavia's Lover. Be sure to subscribe to Celestia's WC and my own channel.